What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 2 of Spot the Pro. This is the series where we gamify screenwriting a bit and try and learn something along the way by seeing if we can spot a pro writer from their very first page. With me today are series regulars Jason Gruich and Joe Marino. Jason's a produced WGA writer with a number of sales under his belt. Joe is a repped writer with an indie movie in production and a love for the word defibrillators. I am Nathan Graham Davis, and I wrote the movie Aftermath, which is coming out later this year. And today I am moderating. Joining us is Sam Bromell, who got his start as a production assistant in New York before becoming an assistant to Baz Luhrmann on The Great Gatsby. From there, he was hired to write on The Get Down and co-wrote the movie ELVIS. He's continued to work ever since, and incidentally, we also went to the same high school together. We were only a year apart and had a lot of the same teachers, but neither of us remembers the other for some reason. Sam's teammate
Neither
today,
of us are memorable.
Neither of us are memorable. That's right. Sam's teammate today is Manfred Lopez Grem. Manfred cut his teeth working as a writer and director in his home country of Mexico, where he actually launched an entire film education program before moving to New York to flee a cartel. Since moving to the States, his red hot spec Mad Rush earned him a 7-figure deal, reached #1 on the Blacklist website, and earned him a Blacklist Labs fellowship. He's also become a member of the WJ and has a number of other things in development. You might know him from an early interview on this channel, as well as his helpful presence in online screenwriting circles everywhere. So here's how this whole thing works. I'm going to show our teams 4 sets of 2 first pages as I read them out loud. Each set will have 1 page from a pro screenwriter and 1 from an amateur. Each team has 1 job: select the professional page and give their reasons for why they selected it. The team who gets the most right gets bragging rights, but the stakes are actually even a little bit bigger than that. If your team picks an amateur instead of a pro, both of you will be reading the first 10 pages of that amateur's script and providing them private feedback. And because I made an effort to pick some really good amateur pages, it is very possible that some not yet professional writer will get a couple reads out of this. As I said in the first episode, this is not a perfectly scientific process, but it is fun. We're all sure to learn something from it, and maybe, just maybe, 1 or more writers will benefit from it. So to those of you watching, mark down your own picks and, as I read them, and let us know in the comments how many you got right and what you took away from this exercise. Just like last time, do your best to focus on the positive stuff. We're not here to shame writers. We're just here to focus on what makes something great. So with that, are you guys ready to go?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's do this. So go ahead and pull up A1. Interior tenement bathroom morning. For a moment, everything is jittery, unsettling. A trembling hand turns on a faucet. Cold water splashes us in the face. Coleman off screen. Okay. Wham, wham. We whirl to the door. Someone banging on it. Man's voice off screen. 0 hour. Coleman, hurry up. Reverse to our hero, Will Coleman, 13. Too young for this. Wiry frame, haunted eyes, pale buzz cut, wearing an oversized jumpsuit. Looks at his hand and somehow makes it go still. Coleman, okay. Throws open the bathroom door, game face on, strides out into a grungy tenement where a gang of grimy, hope-to-die teenage bangers in khaki jumpsuits pack up cases of power tools, which all look not exactly of our era. Coleman gets razzed as he goes through. Gang members, gonna pop that cherry, need a puke, it's cool, puked for my first time. A sheep in the wolf pack, Coleman follows them out to an urban slum street where a junked out futuristic car rumbles by. CCTV drone cams hover in a tropical smog. A siren screams as a police air cruiser swoops overhead. Levitation panels, aka repulsors, thrumming on its underside. Ladies and gents, we are in Miami, Opelika District, a ways from now. As Coleman and the rest of the Fuck the World Day parade push through the teeming corridors of American favela, we hear Feng's voice oozing sleazy British joy de vivre.
Joie de vivre.
Joie de vivre. Okay. Joie de vivre. Gentlemen, long ago, back when this country still had the firepower to scare a bit of act right into the rest of the world, the idea was you worked hard, you got rewarded. The crew brushes aside a tangle of vines, dripping down into an alleyway from a foliage canopy above. This neighborhood is so neglected, the jungle has started to reclaim it. All right, that is number 1. So I'm going to move on Now to A2. Fade in, exterior country road, day. The pale winter sun hangs low, peeking through the leafless branches of trees lining a muddy road. Heavy breathing, controlled, measured as a metronome. Title over Ohio, December 1814. Puff, a burst of moist breath condenses in the cold air. A bare black foot drives down, cracking through ice, capping a slushy puddle. Puff, a new cloud hangs in the air. Bare feet splash down a muddy rut. Mud sputters the ragged trousers hanging below the knees of a lean black man wearing a tattered shirt of a coarse cloth. Another time, another place, Cato 20s would have been a warrior. Sinewy arms, fierce eyes, one cheek bears a scar, a crude R. Branded a runaway, Cato runs again. Puff, a cloud. Interior blacksmith shop, day. Whoosh. A cloud of steam explodes as glowing red blacksmith tongs plunge into a water bucket. Title over Savannah, Georgia, January 1815. George, 35, a heavily muscled black man, graceful and intense, spins from the bucket on a bench to twirl a wrought iron rod, heating in the coals of his furnace. All right. That is our first pair. We're going to give the home team last ups, which means Jason and Joe, you got to make your pick first on this one.
Sure. All right. Jason, I have a feeling that it is A1, because I think that if I had to compare cinematic language, I think that overall that would win. That would inch out for me.
Yeah.
I think both are starting in a really exciting place. I like that both are starting in the middle of the action. We're trying to play catch up. I love setups that lean into aftermath clues, because they tend to pull you in a lot easier. Both of them do that. I think that I think just the word choice for A1 just seems a little bit sharper. How about you?
Yeah, this one's really tough. Like
Good.
both of these could easily be the professional page. I think what you said about cinematic language in the first one for sure. It's much voicier and the transitions are extremely cinematic. Everything just flows, and I like how whoever wrote this constructed the movement, not only down the page, but in the shot that you're thinking about. And the second one, it's almost a coin flip for me, because the second one, the first thing you notice is that economy of white space, the short, quick description, almost like it could be a shooting script in a way. I'm torn, man. I think.
Well, let me throw this in. Something. So you mentioned white space. I do agree. White space is stronger in A2, but it's saying less. It's saying much less, and I don't have quite as clear of a view as I do A1. Both fantastic, but I think that's why I think that there's more ground covered in the economy of the page, even though there's more words in the first set.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on the first. If I had to pick between the two, I would probably have to go with A1, even though, and when I go to like white space, when I talk about white space and word economy, that's because both pages are so strong to me. Like that's probably the only little maybe telltale sign that this is a vertical read, which is more prone to professional writing than amateur writing. But
are you as home team going with A1? Is that right?
I guess we can go with A1.
Yeah.
All
right. Lastly, the sheep and the wolf pack, and the way they describe the drone cams, and of course that I love any script that has the idea of the country is you worked hard, you got rewarded.
Yeah.
Like there's something really strong about that as well.
And there's and the ambiance of it too. I mean, like a siren screams, we're in a tropical smog. There's a police air cruiser swooping overhead, so that you get this real sense of a scene of a lot of movement happening in just one page. So yeah, we'll go with A1.
All right. Manfred and Sam.
What do you think, Manfred?
Oh, it's a tough one. I think the direction on the page might offer clues. So the first one does have like more stuff going on, but the second one just seems to have like the right amount of just like the bare minimum just to get us through the page. And that is a very pro touch, in my opinion. Both are very pro. The first one definitely has more material for like the crew of the film, you know, to like make a film. So, man, it's like a really tough choice. What do you think?
I mean, I think that yeah, the debate comes down to what everyone's saying, which is the amount of white space, as you say. You know, that's the brevity and the efficiency feels professional to me of number two.
Yeah.
Number one on some of it draws me in more, you know, with the visuals that I'm getting, but I feel like I'm gonna go with two.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Yeah.
So somebody's getting their pages ready.
Based on format.
All right.
Strictly,
Yeah.
not necessarily on you know,
Like the idea of it. Yeah.
not necessarily based on the
right.
idea, just based on
It's kind of a
yeah.
it's kind of a coin flip, to be honest. I mean, it's, you know,
Very
You guys
nice
want to
choice.
know?
they both, you know, some people use a lot of
Plus two has Ohio in it, so that's a plus for me.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So the pro script is called Christo by Ian Shore. It is A1, and Ian wrote the movies Infinite and Office Uprising, also wrote on the show Training Day, and this script is a sci-fi adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo, which was the first script to land both Ian and his manager, John Zalzerny, on the blacklist all the way back in 2012. So he thought it'd be a really cool one to share because that was like a really major one for his career. But I'm going to share A2 as well because the writer told me that I could no matter what the outcome was, and also Away Team picked it. So that is Freedom Fort by Clint Williams. Clint's a former newspaper.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Clint. Yeah, I've read Clint before.
He's a great writer, and he's a former newspaper reporter who has shifted that passion to screenwriting in more recent years. He's also the only screenwriter I'm aware of who has won a stare down with a mountain lion, which I think is pretty good claim to fame. And so he's still, you know, he's unrepped at this time and still looking kind of for his big break. But I do think that's coming. I think he's a really great writer. And so I thought this would be a good pairing. Cool.
So we were wrong.
So you guys were wrong.
Okay.
I'll make sure that you get Clint's script.
Yeah, make sure to include a big graphic wrong.
Clint, Clint's a solid writer, so you don't have to worry.
Okay.
That was a man.
Well, I got more coming. So
that's
all right.
tough, man.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. That's why these are so tricky, man. You pick it's too hard.
I'm really curious how this is going to go with when the groups have a separate opinion and then one has to convince the other before we can actually pick as a group.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, well,
we're gonna reverse this now. So Away Team's gonna go first with their selection after I read these two. So let's move on to B.
Manfred, what were you about to say?
Yep.
No, I was going to say that my official opinion on first pages is you can 100% definitely tell which one's pro, except when you're like being put to the test. Then nobody knows nothing.
I
mean, it's
like
I am specifically
it's hard,
picking,
man. It's hard.
It's usually a much higher
picking
wall.
good ones. You know, and the reason that I'm picking really strong ones is because although maybe it's a little bit less scientific in terms of testing, can you tell a pro writer or not? It's kind of a cool comparison. Like, where's the line between somebody who's actually gotten that break and is working and somebody who is like maybe, you know, experienced and on the cusp? Like, what is that line like? Can you decipher it? And also potentially it's an opportunity to give a couple writers a boost. That wouldn't necessarily happen if we were just picking amateur scripts at random.
Right.
All right. So B1, moving on. Teaser. Interior Post Office Day. Super. Sebastian County, Fort Smith, Arkansas, 1877. Tick, 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 tick. A telegraph contact tape taps continuously as postman 40s bald scribbles quickly on a torn piece of paper. When he's done, postman, Ian, 9, a scrawny barefoot kid in overalls, hurries in. Yes, sir. Postman, run this over to Sheriff Chamberlain now. Ian takes the folded paper and sprints out. Exterior, Fort Smith, Main Street, day. Fort Smith is a bustling via point for travelers just east of Indian Territory. The main street is wide, dirt, pockmarked with horseshoe craters. Old wooden stores line the edges, but as you head east, the architecture subtly changes, marking the town's growth. White painted boards begin to appear, soft mud bricks. On the far end of town, we see a 2-story brick building, which we'll come to know as the famous courthouse. This isn't a temporary settlement flooded by any kind of rush. It's here to stay. Ian flies by, kicking up dust as he weaves between carriages and patrons. And that is B1. Moving on to B2. Exterior, lowlands, Syria, day. Rolling hills of bleached pastures bordered by dry stone walls, filled with the trill of insects. Fat-tailed sheep take shelter from the blazing sun under ancient olive trees. A scene unchanged for millennia, timeless, biblical. In the heat haze distance, a black figure appears, rippling with distortion. Drawing closer, the figure becomes 3. A woman and 2 young children emerge from the shimmer and make their way up a steep hill. Exterior, hill, lowlands, continuous. Parched earth crunches underfoot, labored breaths. All 3 are caked in dust like they've been on the road for a while. The woman, cloaked in an abaya and, is it niqab? I don't know that word. I think that says niqab, right? We're going to go with niqab. And somebody can correct me if I get that wrong. Has a slender rope looped over her torso. She clasps the hand of a scruffy girl who keeps looking behind. Woman, move. The rope trails from the woman to a boy, hands bound, mouth gagged. He struggles to keep pace, stumbles, and falls. The rope goes taut and digs into the woman's waist. She sucks air and pulls it away. Blood smears her hand. Woman, up! Get up! The boy rises, defiant, wrapped in hate. The woman tugs the little girl and trudges on. Woman, bastard child. The girl's chin wobbles as she looks back to the boy. Woman, quit staring or I'll dump him in the next fucking well. Girl faces front and quietly snivels. All right.
Yeah.
Away team, you're up.
So, what do you think?
You know, they're both very good in that I'm very able to see super clearly the images. There's no work for me to kind of picture exactly what's happening in each moment and how one image leads into the next image and the dialogue segues into image and all that. I think the first one is the pro one.
Okay.
Based on its simplicity and clarity for some reason. Not that the other one's not clear. I just, yeah, that's my, both of them, I mean, I could be, it's a total coin toss. I have actually no clue, but I'm going to go with one, but I'm ready to be convinced otherwise.
Okay. And I guess we have to agree, right? So like,
Yes.
Okay.
That's part of the fun of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Convince me.
Yeah. So I think both pages are like, okay, first of all, the white space, okay, both of them have it. The scene itself, there's one plus to the second one, which it seems that it has like a strong ending for the first bottom of the, that first ending sentence. And so I really like that. And to me, it would be a coin toss, but yeah, I'll go with a B1 just to be on the same team. But it's hard.
Oh, really? You can convince me. You can convince me.
Well,
if you feel strongly about the other one, then I'm convincible.
Okay. No, it's just that I really like one of the lines, and that's like no basis to judge anything on. So, but
I mean, good writing is good writing, right? So
yeah, like, and it's just like or I'll dump him in the next fucking well, and it was just like a really cool like ending moment for.
Yeah.
And yeah, but the first one just reads so fast. Well, let's I'll go with you, and let's.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, if I'm wrong next time, I owe you one.
Okay.
I just want you guys to know how much fun I'm having. Like that
Yeah.
these are this challenging. That was definitely the goal.
Quick,
it's like.
Sorry, quick thought, real quick. Do we want to add an extra element here where once the second group goes, the first group is allowed to change their note if the first group convinced them? Do we want to do something like that, or do we just want to lock in? You lock in, because I feel like it might be.
Yes.
Manfred says yes. All right, let's try it out for this episode and see how it goes.
Okay.
Okay. So it's a weird addition, but just as an additional.
Let's try it out for this
final
one. See
answer.
How it goes.
Is this your final answer? Yeah.
Yeah, and
right,
okay. Before you guys
it.
go, like my final take on this, before hearing you guys, is my heart is like on the second one, but my analytical mind is on the first one.
Interesting.
So,
love that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a bit the same, you know, I think what gets me on the first one is, well, for some reason, the ticket. And
that, I mean, that is really, it's
Yeah.
kind of like,
it's, you know, it's using sound
yeah,
as cinema, you know, with everything. And then just, even though the lines are quite simple, it's like when he's done, postman, it all reads in this rhythm that's not complicated, but very, you know, you understand, oh, the camera just moved there. He said the line. Now we're over here.
All right. Yeah.
It's like that. But
Okay.
all right.
Anyway.
Okay. I'm moving
Home
my
team.
chips. Yeah, into B1.
Home
Like,
team.
all of them. Yeah.
Where are you going with this?
All in.
I'll start, I guess, since Joe started last time. I think it's B2.
Again.
Yeah, so I agree with everything both of you just said on the away team. It's kind of another coin flip, but the second page. So for these two pages, of course, the first page wins with economy of space and all that good stuff, and the short, quick stuff, like Sam was saying. Everything's very clear, very simple. That points straight to a professional. But with the coin flip I look at the totality of each page, like in what's happening on the page for this matchup. I have to make a choice. And so for the first one, the teaser is, you know, a guy running out of an office, and then we get the setting. And then for the second one, we get the setting with the sounds of insects and this woman and kid who we don't know what's happening. And then, like Manfred was saying, that bottom line, quit staring, I'll dump him in the next fucking well. Like, I'm turning that page because
It's a bit of a hook.
I want to, and it's very specific. We're in Syria. We have a kind of an idea what might be happening. We don't quite know, but we get a very good sense and a vibe of this story and what's about to maybe happen on page 2 and 3. So if I'm voting, I'm going to have to stick with B2 unless Joe can convince me otherwise.
Okay. I'm also going to go with B2 specifically because I'm looking at the complication of what's being conveyed, the difficulty of the cinematic focus. As we all said, we can clearly see what's going on, but I think B2 has a far harder hurdle to pass, because it's starting out with like, hey, we see a black figure, and the moment that got me was drawing closer, the figure becomes 3.
Yeah, I love that.
And then it's
Yeah.
you know, that mirage type of and when I read that, I was like, man, I don't know how I would have written that. That's such a difficult
it's good writing.
thing to convey properly.
Really good writing.
And I thought the same thing for we focus on just the first child and just the woman, and then this rope, and then you're following the rope, and then you see this third character that they're not really doing well with. I think that this is just it reads pro to me just because of the ease in which the difficulty is conveyed to me effortlessly.
That's a great way to put it. That
All right.
sums up what I.
Yeah, I love that.
Away team, you want to switch up your answer, or are you sticking with B1?
Well, my heart is in B2, but I'll go with what
You want to
Sam
go?
says.
You want to go B2? I can go B2. I can go B2. If your heart's there, you should.
If
we
we're
can
all
go.
wrong, it's going to be hysterical.
No, actually, if we're wrong, then it's gonna be amazing because then we get to read the 10 pages. So
Yeah,
There you go.
I get 4 reads.
so like I say B2, but
Let's go B2 then. We go B2.
All
Okay,
right.
all right.
This is interesting. Okay. So the pro script is B1.
Yeah, okay.
No!
And what's cool about this is
Oh my God.
so this
Oh,
is
man.
from Redemption by Christy Lowry. So Christy
Oh.
has written on many shows,
Oh.
including Dead Boy Detective, Into the Badlands, and FBI. Along the way, she's risen through the ranks of television. She last served as a supervising producer on Quantum Leap. But Redemption's an interesting script for her to share because she actually wrote it before she was a professional, but it's the sample that has earned her most of her jobs. So
Nice.
it's also
Yeah,
kind
nice.
of, I didn't ask either her or Ian to do this, but they both sent me one that was very pivotal in their careers. And so I thought it'd be really cool to compare that
Yeah.
to the other ones that we got in. B2, I really enjoyed for a lot of the same reasons that you pointed out. I think when I saw the thing where the one figure became 3, I was like, oh, this one's going in. Just because it was like really cool. So that's from The Shadows of the Sun From the Shadows of the Sun is the title, by Jack Azadi. And Jack is a special forces veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. He's a former volunteer in the Kurdish army, which was a role he took after meeting survivors of the Yazidi genocide. And he has previously placed in the Nickel Top 50. So he's, had some, successes along the way. He's been trying to get himself out there, but still also waiting for his big break. So, I thought it was a really, really strong first page and worth including in this thing.
Definitely.
So,
wow.
Cool.
Amazing.
Christie's amazing. It is no surprise. I've read her before, and her writing is just phenomenal. I got stuck with, I got too focused on the cinematic. My cinematic language rule got me.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very cinematic, and also that was a tough comparison again, right? Because it's like that was kind of the one that made a major difference in her career. But it was early on.
It makes sense because as was said by the other group, the ending of this page is so strong with, that pockmarked with horseshoe craters, and then just watching, as it says, the town's growth. That's a real unique
it's really
to do.
Also quite cinematic. Cool. All right, let's move on to C1, Over Black. Beep, boop, beep, boop. I'm having fun with this. A computer video chat call. Fade in. Interior Kyle's dad's house. Kitchen. Webcam shot. Day. The view from a laptop webcam into a somewhat stark suburban home. Plenty of high-end furniture and appliances, but a total lack of decorative touches. Men live here. Staring into the camera is Kyle Erickson, 18, as he sits at the kitchen table. His face looks like he hasn't been awake for very long, though it's midday. He's a bit uneasy to see who's video calling him. Intercut with interior Rochelle's apartment, living room, kitchen, webcam shot. View from a laptop webcam into a cheap one-bedroom apartment. Despite its cheapness, there are plenty of almost Pinterest-worthy touches of decoration. Looking eagerly into the camera is Rochelle Martinez, a multiracial 18-year-old whose zest for life borders on naivety. Rochelle, hi Kyle. She re-angles her computer on her coffee table and sits back on her couch, revealing she's about 8.5 months pregnant. Short beat, growing panic in Kyle's eyes, then cut to black. Beat, then boop, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop. Fade in. Interior, Kyle's dad's house, kitchen, webcam shots. Moments later, he fidgets, cringing a little, waiting for her to answer. In the background behind him, there's a large article printout hanging on the fridge. He frowns and re-angles his computer so he can't see it. All right, that is C1. Let's move on to C2. Exterior, downtown Los Angeles skyline, morning. It's a beautiful and glorious morning, and nothing about it would indicate the frenetic brutality unspooling in the next 12 hours. Push in on dozens of naked bodies pressed against the wide window of an abandoned industrial loft, blocking our view of what's inside. As we get closer, we realize the bodies are chipped, cracked, and worn out mannequins before we, interior loft, same. Find ourselves in there. It's dim. Beams of sunlight break through the hard plastic graveyard of the figures at the window, dust motes dancing along with them. Musical notes hang in the air as two haunting voices creep in singing Barcarolle? Yeah? Barcarolle. From Offenbach's Tales of Hoffmann, the opera pouring from speakers docked on a stand next to a vase filled with dead flowers. I read these pages beforehand, and it didn't occur to me I was going to have trouble pronouncing anything while I went. So now I'm starting to feel for you a little bit, Joe.
Joe knows about that.
Moving away from the window reveals the cavernous loft is barren except for some key pieces of furniture and clusters of mannequins hanging from chains on the ceiling like lost souls suspended in time, a Maccabee art installation. A young man is working out here, implementing several yoga poses. Lithe, muscled, shirtless, this is Audric Bellafleur, a Frenchman, mid-20s. Beads of sweat trickle down his scar-riddled torso, pooling by the waistband of thin cotton pants riding low on dexterous hips. The workout devolves sinister as Bellafleur moves from a pose to a roll and jumps up to kick several mannequins in the head with one foot while maintaining his balance with the other. Various shots angles as Bellafleur begins to incorporate an attack on the mannequins with different weapons. A hunting knife, which he uses to slice open a mannequin's chest before impaling it into a temple. A truncheon to split open another mannequin's face. Piano wire wrapped around a mannequin's neck, pulled with terrible force until it's decapitated. We follow the rolling head along the floor until it stops at the bound feet of a beaten, gagged, and tied uniformed chauffeur, 30s, propped up on a chair in the corner of the loft. And that's C. All right. So we got a home team going first this time, right?
Okay. Want me to start, Jason?
Please.
Okay. Another close one. I hate you, Nate. This is very good.
I know.
Yeah. This one's especially interesting because they're representing completely different styles of writing here. One is very focused on like, I want to do white space. I want it to feel very smooth. And the other one's like, I don't fucking care. If it's good, it's good. You're going to be paying attention. So I think that both have several little touches where I'm like, that's a pro touch. Like, I love the idea of, you know, the total lack of decorative touches. Men live here. That's great.
Perfect.
The reveal of the 8.5 months pregnant. Most people would have done it earlier as soon as we met her. This one waited. I liked that. And I like this weird little detail of the moving the printout so it's not in his view on the screen. So there's less exciting stuff in this, but it's absolutely pulling you in and is clear, and you know exactly, same as before, you aren't struggling to know where you're going. Second set of pages reads very novelistically, but it's very clear, and you're not getting bogged down by much. It's very clear. It's very exciting. I think this one mileage may vary on, you know, if it reads faster for you or it doesn't. It did for me. I think I'm going to go with B2 purely because of the effortlessness of the readability. And I'm taking that trait as a pro move purely because of how readable the bulks of text are. But this could be a toss-up. I don't know.
That's interesting. Cool. Jason, what about you?
Well, Nate, you're 3 for 3 for possibly having to choose these things.
Yeah.
Joe
started it. I just want to point out, like, he was the one who like made it super challenging and like kind of set the bar.
Yeah. Again, both are really, really, really good. I like how we open on the sound with C1, you know, like over black. It's much more white space readable, but like Joe was saying, once I got past paragraph 2 or 3 on C2, I felt like I was in the hands. It's very novelistic, and there are no rules. You don't have to have an extremely Walter Hill first page of white space to impress anyone. They prefer to read that. But when you're as good a writer as you are on C2, for me, like I was leaning in, like, just to get the various all the great descriptions and the little details of what's happening. And then once again, anytime you can hook me, or I would assume most people, at the bottom of page 1 with a reveal or a line, like in the last script, you know, I'm gonna throw her down the well, like here. Now we start with mannequins that are being tortured, and we end up with a real guy in the corner. My interest is peaked tenfold, and I want to keep reading and seeing, you know, what happens from there. But I'm gonna have to go with, my gut always said C2 for this one. Very tough. It's a coin flip again, but I'm gonna go with C2.
And I'll just make one last note on this. I think when you read something that you can see is breaking rules in some way, and it's still working, that's a big one for me too. Because I mean, it's interesting. You know, of course, I think it's real easy when you're watching a pro do pro traditional stuff. But I think when somebody's breaking rules and is still pulling you in, there's a mark of something to discuss as well. It's kind of like that whole thing of you know, learn the rules completely before trying to break them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I'll add to that just what you said. It's a sign of like someone who cares enough about their craft. They know the rules, and you can see them push beyond it with their descriptive writing. And again, like if you're a brand new writer, a brand new spec writer, I don't recommend writing like page 2 first, because people, because unless you're that good, but people really like to read short, quick stuff to get, you know, once you're starting. What, and you always hear the debate, oh, well, a pro can get away with that. A pro's made relationships and networks and, has trusted readers already. So they can start writing however they want because they're going to get an automatic read from their friend or their producer or whatever director they're working with,
Tarantino wrote a 15-page starting scene. Why can't I do it?
But if I'm understanding you guys correctly, you're saying that regardless of whether or not this is a pro writer, you would keep reading based on the quality of the writing. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So you guys are going with C2. Away team.
Okay, I guess I'll go first this time. I agree everything you guys said. So this is like a really kind of dumb thing that many of us might do is we take a peek and we're like, oh, 5 line paragraphs, okay, I wonder what this is going to be like. And then I'm like reading it and then suddenly it catches, you're like in the read. And suddenly I forget, about the paragraph lines and I'm just like reading. And so that resistance dissolved like halfway through of going through blocks. And so to me, the writing style is not an issue once you start reading. It might be an issue if you're like flipping through it, but so to me, this is like kind of not the screenplay you would send as a first thing, because you want to be judged by everything in the famous flip, of the initial one. But this is probably somebody who either didn't get the note, they're not supposed to do this, or that they've written for a while and they just are really confident in their voice. And so I love that. And the first one, to me, is kind of like a by the book, breaking in, voicey, the sentences, the sound effects on the page, it's just all of it. It just like draws you in. It's fast. I love it. And so I think I've gotten it wrong both times, and my problem is that I keep splitting my vote between my heart and my mind, and
Right.
and that's why Nate, I think, did such a great job with picking these. I would say C2 on this one, probably knowing that I'm going to be wrong, but
I'm torn.
yeah.
It's so hard.
Convince all of us.
Yeah, but you were right the last
Yeah,
time. So.
but they're very different genres, so it's hard to compare. The first one to me feels like it's going to be the setup, obviously, for not necessarily a romantic comedy, but something that's going to be very based on the relationships that's set up, this relational setup, and that to me is a very different style of doing things. That's often less concerned with like cinematic language and the flourishes that are present in the second one. The imagery, like, the images of the second one of, you see this window with the bodies and they seem naked and then you go, oh, they're mannequins. It's really drawing you in with the visual ideas and it's leaning into that. And the second one, or sorry, and the first one is I'm gonna go it's interesting. I'm really torn because I'm like I have some instinct towards the first one, but that's only because sometimes I just like to react against the group on like
Okay.
F it, let's roll the dice level, but I don't think that's a reason to do that right here. So I'm going to go with number 2 as well.
Well,
right.
no, but wait. If you want to convince that, I'll join you with C1 just to
flip
contrarian.
it.
Yeah, it's just
You want to be contrarian?
Yeah, it's just because
be contrarian with me.
Because the C1, I would love to keep reading it.
Okay, let's be contrarian. Let's be contrarian.
Yeah, let's be contrarian. We'll go with C1.
All right, so you're going to go C1.
Great, and they both do exactly what they need to do for their genre.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so home team,
100%.
Home team, you can switch back if you want to.
If you guys switch back, we'll switch back.
I'm good unless Joe convinces me. I think it's C2. But it could be either one. Yeah.
It was the same toss up as when we started. I still think the same things about the other one. So I'm going to stick with my vote.
Cool.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
So it was C2. So
what's the pro?
So C2
Sorry,
is
it's okay.
We're even now.
You guys got some reading to do,
but
but
being
at least
contrarian gets you absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
you guys have some reading to do, but you know, at least it's starting with
okay,
really
can I
good
just
first
say like
pages.
why? Yeah, can I say why the second one? Like now that I know,
Yeah.
is there's like this one sentence where you're supposed to not do this, but it just works so well. It's like beaten, gagged, and tied.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, you could solve that with one word.
Right.
Yeah.
You could have, but the way it's just written is just so
And the tone
spot
comes
on.
through in that, right? And like
Yeah,
that's
because
I think that's what makes it work. But it's
yeah,
funny to
yeah.
me, Sam, that you were thinking about that because I read a spec from you last summer that you were working on, and you like pretty close to the beginning. You had like a 10-line action block in there, and I was like, "Holy shit!" when I saw it on the page. But like then it like worked so well. I actually remember telling another writer that I had just read it and like how blown away I was by how well it worked. And so it's funny to me that like you're thinking about that and you're like, the economy is so good on this, like
Yeah.
because like even as somebody who writes that and manages to pull it off really well, like the writer did in C2, like you still think about that too. So I think that's pretty
Oh yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Well, what we do as writers and what we do as readers is very different. I might
is.
believe in my ability to do something bonkers, but that doesn't mean I'm going to inherently,
Yeah.
lend that same credibility to another blind read.
Mhm.
Now this one's really hard.
Well, let me do the reveal. So C2 is Borderlands by Martin Aguilera.
Oh,
Fuck.
Martin
wow.
is repped at Gersh and also by Nick Light of Bright Light Content, who also happens to be Jason Gruich's manager. He's written on a number of things on assignment, and most recently wrote an episode of The Craving for Netflix. C1 is Delivery Route by Adrian Thorne, and Adrian grew up on a steady diet of country music and Catholicism, and so her writing often ranges from cowboy shit, her words, to lighthearted explorations of family and faith. And her micro-budget movie Army Dog can be seen on Amazon, which is also super cool. But she's also, just like the other writers, looking for her kind of big break. And so I thought that first page was super impressive and worth including. So,
Yeah.
all right. Let's get on to the last pairing. I'm excited about this one.
No, don't say that. No,
No.
this was hard enough. This was hard enough. You just boss leveled after I beat the boss, and then I'm hearing more boss music.
No, we got
Don't
more
say
coming.
that. Don't set it up that way.
All right, so D1. Exterior, Amazonia, Brazil, day. The rainforest floor thick with decaying leaves. A strange Amazon insect crawls out. It stops at a swarm of mites, shoots a halo of pink spray from a tubular gland. The mites twitch, die. The bug gobbles up its victims, turns to another swarm of mites, shoots again. Off-screen, humans' footsteps crashing through the jungle, wider. A figure stumbling through the tall, damp green. Eddie Faith, a 40-ish city boy, out of his element, out of breath, clothes drenched in sweat. He gets his bearings, sees human shadows in the forest, primeval beyond a shallow stream. He wades across it, stumbles after them. Eddie, stop, goddammit, stop. He digs in his pocket, takes out a wallet, unfolds it. A badge reflects the light, bounces around the foliage. Eddie, police, New York City police. A small man appears behind him. Part indigenous South American, the man dressed like a civilizado. He's Eddie's interpreter. Eddie, when are they going to show themselves? Small man shrugs. One day, many days. Eddie swats some plums, stinging gnats, size big. He's just about an empty. Small man. But they hear you pretty damn good. Eddie peers around, notices that deep within the forest, those human shadows are still there. All right, now we're going to go to D2. Note on languages. Fitting with the film's borderland setting, characters may switch from speaking English to Spanish, except for the Knights of America who only speak English unless otherwise noted. Fade in. Exterior, Ciudad Juarez, early morning, the near future. The sun rises over the mountains, revealing the clouds of pollution floating over the dusty city. Gunshots and sirens echo as we glide above it. We watch the more populated areas with tall buildings, gated neighborhoods with houses cloned from the same model, and brand new malls. As we keep flying, dozens of cars and people move over the streets, all on their way to work and school. We reach downtown in northern outskirts as we start to cross into exterior El Paso, Texas, early morning. Construction crews build a wall across the border, surrounding the nearby empty international bridges. We come down to exterior border wall, early morning. A young immigrant, early 20s, crouches as he hides from the construction crews working at the top of the wall. He scuttles away, scanning his surroundings. The immigrant reaches the wall and starts to climb. Struggling, he climbs up and up, sweat breaking from his face until he reaches the top. His fingers grip the edge as his sweaty face pops into view, teeth gritted. A knife slices across his hands. He yells in pain and plummets. Upon hitting the ground, something inside him cracks. He screams. From above the wall, Kenneth, early 30s, tall and athletic, watches. He's dressed up in tactical gear with a seal on his shoulder that says KOA, featuring a medieval Catholic knight with an American flag draped over him. Silently and coldly watches the young immigrant as he agonizes in the head and sand, turns around and marches away. I think it's the heat and sand. Turns around and watches away, or marches away. All right, so that's it. Home team has last ups, which means away team goes first this time.
Another hard one. I mean, both of them have a great catch. You know, one being that you're with a New York City cop, you're in the jungle where you don't expect a New York City police officer, and suddenly you're with a New York City police officer, you're like, what, you know, that's great. And then the next one with, you know, the sort of vigilante border patrol, you know, self appointed border patrollee, I assume is the character there. So both are very effective for me as in terms of the storytelling. The first one is written in a format that is almost again, it's almost like it's a little bit, you know, the way the lines are broken up there. Yeah. It feels like only a professional writer could get away with that. You know, you just kind of, I do it exactly how I want style. But that may not be the case.
Maybe a trick.
Could be a trick. I don't know.
I also noticed that I only see the word wider in pro scripts. I don't see it as much in amateur scripts for whatever reason.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And I definitely noticed the taking away of the space between paragraphs. You have to like specifically go, like if you're using Final Draft, you have to like go and override to get it all squished together. So yeah. So I'm like, oh man, somebody's like really crunching in the lines in there. And yeah, pro definitely.
What do you think, Manfred? What's your instinct? Because I don't know if I have a clear instinct.
Well, the page 2 to me is 100% like spot on how like the script should read, and it's clear, and it just like looks very pro from the way it's written, the way the language is used. And if that first screenplay didn't have that, you know, getting rid of the spaces, that's what's bothering me, because a pro would 100% like do that, you know. And so I think the D2 is somebody wrote that and had a lot of success with that screenplay, opened all kinds of doors, and it's a great sample. And that's what I would like be proud to, like, if I had written that, you know, this is like my calling card. The second one is maybe you've had already some success, and now you're gonna like do something slightly different, and you know it has to be this way in the screenplay. And so I think your instinct on just the pro having like done that as a trick, well, as a technique, it's not a trick, a technique of, you know, getting rid of the spaces. So, and also to Joe's note about the wider, that's definitely like.
Do you think the first one is the pro one?
Yeah, I think so.
Me too. That's my instinct.
Home team.
Yeah.
I'm gonna agree with them. I think this is one of the things that that Manfred was talking about with your instincts say one, but the being impressed with the other is you know, I'm also perhaps unfairly putting the writing style and the one use of wider as the agreeants here. But it is so easy to go the other way. What do you think, Jason?
I think Manfred nailed it, and definitely what you said about using wider. That's a camera shot. Pros, I mean, some amateurs do it too, but you see that a lot in pro scripts too.
The way it's used here is used very well, though.
Absolutely, and I think Manfred nailed everything else about why I'm leaning towards D1. It's just, it feels way more intentional with its style and its intention in the way that
Definitely.
they are trying to dictate the way that they want you to read it, the way they intended you to read what they have in their head, you know. So I think I would lean towards D1. D2 is certainly a wonderful page, pulls you
And
right
you get
in.
the plot, you get the difference of the world right away. It is so quick.
Yeah,
like the idea of
the
like,
setting.
here's what's weird about our world. Boom.
Yeah, Exterior Cuidad Juarez. I mean, that's right now. Like, I'm a huge, like, I love Sicario and those type of movies.
For a second, I thought it was. I was like, "Is this Sicario? Is that how the opening?"
Yeah, there's an immediate sense. Like, that's why setting matters, you know, because there's an immediate sense of unease and danger, especially in this page. Because I know, like, Juarez and how things go down there, and I love the way the whole page unfolded. The description, the kind of the reveal that it's not a cop, like Sam was saying. It's kind of self-appointed Border Patrol.
Yep.
Which we assume is that, you know, something like that is going to be him. But yeah, I would lean with D1 for all the reasons y'all have already stated.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so I'll do the reveal. D1 is the proscript. That is Jungle Land, an unproduced script by Hans Bauer and Sycamore Flynn. It was sent over by Hans, who I actually had never spoken to before. He had just seen the first video and reached out. But his career dates back to the 90s and includes the movie Anaconda. So I thought it was super cool that he reached out and sent that over. And then D2 is Salvadora by Oscar Marino. Oscar is a Mexican writer and filmmaker who lives on the Juarez-El Paso border himself, actually. He's a cancer survivor who has witnessed some of the horrors of living on that border during a very violent time. He co-wrote the thriller Kaz for Kenyan television, and he produced, wrote, and directed his own micro-budget horror movie Ente, and managed to get that onto Tubi. But still, you know, is looking for that professional break to be able to turn this into something that he can do professionally. And so I thought that was a really exceptional first page and
very much
worth sharing.
Yeah.
I mean, they were all all really good in it. And what it reminds me is that the importance of the first page. I think I often think of like, oh, you know, the first sequence or something, like, let's get whatever that first sequence is. But even within that first sequence, the importance of, by the end of the first page, getting your teeth in the reader. So I feel like I learned something.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Thank you to all the writers.
Yeah, I mean, it's really huge thanks to all the writers.
And,
it's a bold thing to be able to put yourself out there like that, especially, I mean, for both. Like, if you're a pro, there's a little bit of like maybe reputational fear there, and if you're an amateur, like, it's a big thing to put yourself out there in front of pro writers on YouTube. So
yeah, especially if you're not ready. 100%.
Super cool.
And I look forward to reading those the 10 pages. I think we've got Manfred and I have 2.
You have 2.
Three.
Yeah, I think you have 2,
yeah,
maybe
so
3.
I look forward to doing
So
3.
I have to double check.
So,
Home team won. But I mean, they were hard. They were purposely hard. And
there were at least 2 shots where I was almost going to try to convince Jason to switch. But the thing that that's the last thing I'll say about what this particular set reminding me of is every single one of these, even though they're in the middle of a sequence, they're in the middle of something going on, they all succeeded at having a beginning, middle, and an end to the page.
Yeah,
there was a clear story in the first page, and I forget about that. I am also, like what's been said, like I'd like to think in sequences. I know that the first page is important to show craft, but I don't think about it in terms of beginning, middle, and end. So I'm reminded today.
Yeah.
I also I'm gonna say goodbye real quick.
Sam, thank you so much for jumping on.
Such a pleasure.
I'm cutting it short, and I'd love to chat with you guys more. So
we'll make it happen another time.
Definitely, yeah.
So
let's do it again.
Cool. All right, later, man.
Sam.
See you.
Bye. I think I learned something today too, and it has to do with how you approach the industry and your relation to it. So there's kind of like this first date scenario when we're like trying to break in. And that first page, man, it has to be spotless, has to be, you know, you're like dressed all the way. Or maybe you've already, you know, have some success and you've been dating a while with the industry. And then you're like, okay, I can afford to take risks, you know, I'm going to express my real self. And that's when you see kind of interesting things happening on that first page. And so I love some of the risks that I saw on these first pages, especially by the pros, you know, where we got it wrong. But really well done. Yeah.
I love the way you said that, for real. That's going back to kind of like, I think we picked a page based on brevity, and then we picked a page based on, there was no brevity. It was like chunks of
Actually,
text.
you know what? That kept happening because there were quite a few examples of here's a script that has dialogue and here's a script that has none. And that happened
Right.
a couple times.
But
And
what Manfred was saying about that whole first date, like treat it like a first date, because that's, you're not going to show up on a first date like unshowered, you know, half naked, stinking, and think of your first page really that way. It's if you don't have connections already, or if you're trying to kind of start dating Hollywood and like getting your name out there, my recommendation would be to lean much closer to that brevity and, you know, conciseness, simplicity of a first page. So, because they don't know who you are, they're giving you a shot to a read, and they're already assuming you're not going to be up to par. So don't give them any reason to, you know. But I think Manfred said it great. Like, treat it like a first date if you don't already have an in, you know.
Yeah. I think that's why the whole Twitter thing where, you know, random people will post their first pages is really smart, because you don't know who's looking, you don't know who's going to come across something. And if your page hits that random person who's passing by, it's the easiest excuse to like read a first page. Oh, it's on my you know, it's on my feed, scan it. And if they got hit the way we just did with some of these, like I would be at least tempted to be like, oh, I hope that writer's as good as this first page.
I mean, all 4 of these first pages are like really, really, really strong. Because I didn't really have much of a chance to agree or disagree with you guys on anything, since you were the ones who were the contestants. I do want to say, I was always the writer who like before I broke in, I was writing, which now I look back on it, it's kind of silly. I just keep doing it because it's what I've always done. But I start every script with breathe in, right? And end each one with breathe out. And I did that before I was a pro. And like, I just kind of had this mindset of like, you know, because I recognize that same things, that like a lot of professionals write with a certain confidence that they're comfortable breaking the rules, as long as like their writing is good enough, people are going to read it anyway. And I was like, I'm going to do that too, so that when people read what I wrote, like they sense that same confidence. And I think at first it was a little bit misguided because I wasn't actually quite that good. But as I improved, I think it really played in my favor, and it probably helped me. And so, you know, on the one hand, I still think the first date analogy is it's perfection. But like a part of like what made you guys decipher some of the pros accurately was those risks and that confidence that was on the page, where they would like break a rule or like at least like kind of skirt one and do something that you would really only expect from somebody who felt confident that they could get away with it. And like, I wouldn't necessarily discourage somebody who's an amateur from doing that. It's just that your writing had better be great. But if you do that well, then it's going to make people be like, oh, I'm in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing. And that's powerful. So anyway,
I remember reading a script in maybe like 2013, 2014 that began with fade the fuck in. And all these years later, I still remember that.
Sure.
And you don't,
that was
you know,
famous,
and
I think that was Balls Out, right? Wasn't it? Yeah.
Was that it?
So yeah. And they went hard from page 1 on just like subverting everything. So
it had that Billy Karate energy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool. This is awesome, guys. Thank you so much for doing this. It was once again an absolute blast. I enjoyed challenging you with it.
So much fun.
So you know, I just want to say, like, if you're a pro or amateur screenwriter and you'd like to submit a page for a future episode, check out the link in the description below. If you're an amateur, we are trying to pick like pretty exceptional first pages if we can, because this is not just about seeing if people can spot a pro, but we also want to be able to maybe give a writer the odd boost. But to do that, your page has to be able to fool people who are as experienced as these guys are. So if you think you've got a page that stacks up to what you've seen here today, definitely submit. And if you are somebody who is interested in coming on a future episode as a pro writer, a rep, an executive, producer, director, whatever, somebody who's read a bunch of scripts and maybe is in a position to materially help a writer on their journey, also get in touch. But thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.